Hi, I'm Chris.
Hi, I'm Ritchie.
And welcome to the Serviced Accommodation Podcast. So today's episode was going to be about our biggest mistakes, wasn't it, Ritchie?
Yes, our biggest losses really, our failures, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. However, the Southampton manager came along and it's not a loss anymore, is it? It's a learning.
Yeah, so after losing a game, he managed to carefully reframe it. No, we didn't lose, we learned.
But it was a good learning because since then they haven't lost anything, or you haven't lost anything as a team. So yeah, it is a learning.
It is, and you know, it is an interesting philosophy that actually, you know, you don't make mistakes, you kind of have learnings from it. And actually it's a very powerful philosophy, I think.
Positive as well, very positive.
You're taking positives from what could be construed as a negative and actually use it to develop and improve both your business and yourself, right?
Yes, yeah, exactly. People talk about their L's, their losses, their failures, but it's you have to go through those to get to the successes. So it is positive.
Yeah, so that's the longest intro ever. However, welcome to our episode on our biggest learnings. So one early learning that we had, Ritchie, was around the first purchase we ever tried to make.
Yes, and it truly was a learning because we've learned a lot from it, what to do, what not to do, Yeah,
definitely. I think there are a lot of positives to draw from it, for sure. You know, it was our first project in property and it was a 500k purchase. We looked at the deal, we structured it in a way where it was going to be very profitable, so it was a really good deal. And we looked at what funds were required, and we went out and we got an investor for those funds, didn't we?
Yes, How much funds were required for that?
It was about 200k.
200,000,
Yeah. So obviously, we're relatively new to the property. We've just put this deal together, and we're really happy about the fact that actually it doesn't just happen in books or in talks or in seminars. That it is possible to structure a deal and have someone come in and bring 200k into one of your deals. So we were very excited about
Very excited about our first equity deal. That's the thing. Extremely excited.
Definitely. And then I think the deal was dragging out for a number of reasons, mainly around the kind of finance, and it does happen, asking lots and lots of questions.
I remember, because of my previous experience in mortgages, I took the role of liaising with the finance companies, and it wasn't very straightforward, and it took very long.
Dragging it out. But in a way that was kind of a bit of a godsend, because I think 3 months into this very drawn out finance process, we suddenly realised, well, hang on, why are we doing deals like this for cash flow?
Because it wasn't really a cash flow deal, was it? It was an equity deal, long term.
But I mean, for us at that point in time, we had a business, we had overheads, and actually cash flow was the most important priority within our business at that point. But what we hadn't done before we'd gone out and talked to an investor was actually think about structuring the deal from our point of view. What's our priority right now? What do we want to get out of this?
So we hadn't looked at it strategically from our point of view. We're just looking at it for the benefit of the investor as opposed to looking at it from our own benefit.
Exactly. So when we went out and we had those conversations with the investor, it was about, look, here's the deal, how much money it would make, how would it work for you? And of course the investor's going to say what any investor would with a blank canvas. It's like, well, I want as little risk as possible, meaning the first thing I want is my money back. And we thought, okay, that's fair enough. You're investing and risking your money on it, so you get your money back, and we structured a deal that way. But of course, because we structured it that way, at some point we had the realisation that actually we're doing this deal for cash flow,
but we're not getting any.
We're not getting any cash flow for 2 years.
2 years.
So suddenly this realisation that, okay, pat ourselves on the back, guys, we've got a good deal here, we've found an investor, we've managed to structure it in a way that works, but actually it's not really that beneficial for us right now.
That's it, that was the first thing that came to light, wasn't it?
It was, absolutely. And because of the kind of drawn out process with the finance, everyone was getting frustrated. At some point that investor actually moved the goalposts a little bit, which we weren't very comfortable with. We felt if we had an agreement that agreement should stand, but actually that kind of worked out quite well for us.
It did. The drawn out process was actually a godsend in a way as well, because people start revealing the true colours, not just when things are good, but when things aren't going as well. And like you said, like you mentioned, very importantly, you can't just move the goalposts when you've agreed to something and signed up for something.
So they moved the goalposts a bit. We saw that as a signal that actually, maybe they weren't a partner for us, and and so we did what we felt was the right thing and said to them, look, we're not sure that we're the right partner for you on this project, so actually if you want to go and do the project on your own, then you're more than welcome to actually take this deal and run with it yourself.
Not an easy decision to make, where it's your first equity project and you're just thinking, yeah, we've done this.
You think all the work we put into it, negotiating with the agent, getting 10% below the asking price on a 500k purchase is not a mean feat. We did really well with that, and obviously structuring the deal, doing the due diligence around it, getting finance stuff put into place. So we'd done a lot of work on it, but again, it was very important to us that we were working with the right people, that we're structuring the deal in the right way. And, we had a very big learning, and as soon as we realised that actually this isn't the right way to work for us, like I say, we offered the investor the deal on their own, and they kind of snapped our hands off, really, didn't they? Like, yeah, thank you. Yeah. So that all worked out well in the end, but there were some very key learnings around that, I think. We're talking about learnings today, not mistakes.
Yes.
So it's important that we focus on that. But I think with investments, this is the first time we'd ever really done an investment, certainly of that scale. And I think what we learned strategically from that was that you need to start with what you need and what works for you, and then go out and structure an investment around that, which is a great investment product. So, while that was a great win for the investor, it wasn't necessarily a great win for us. So if we'd started with what would the win look like for us, there's no doubt that actually we could have structured that investment, which was a great investment vehicle for someone else, but not that particular person, because of what they wanted from the deal.
That's it, yeah.
So whenever we've done that, moving forward, we've always started with, what are we looking to achieve from this deal? And then once we understand that, then the next step is, how can we turn this into an amazing investment for someone else, but also have it fit in with our goals and objectives?
Great lesson learned.
It was. And the second lesson, obviously, around that then was in terms of, we were probably a little bit blasé in the way that we kind of went out and got the investor on that. And I think it was, actually it was some very brief conversations with people we hadn't known that well. We didn't get a lot of it in writing as well. But I think the key thing we learned was that investors were about relationships.
So all those lessons were actually a blessing, or blessings in disguise, because we learned a lot on who to work with, who not to work with, and we've used these lessons moving forward on how we're very fussy and how we not pick and choose, but it's about relationship before you work with someone. You got to know someone, you got to know their values, if your values are aligned, and we've taken this into our business and we've replicated it moving forward based on lessons we learned early on in our careers.
I think that the key thing is you're looking for a win-win situation, aren't you? But how can you ever know if it's a real win-win until you really genuinely know someone and understand them on a personal level and what their objectives are? It's only really when you get that level of understanding that you can know and understand if the opportunity is maybe a right match for an investor anyway. So I think that's a massively valuable learning, which helped really accelerate our business after that.
100%.
Even if at the time it seemed quite painful, to
negative,
lose out on our first equity deal, but actually,
we learnt a lot.
Massively.
Another lesson learned was on a hotel lease option. If you recall that one, went on for quite a while.
Clearly,
yes. And we learnt a lot from that one. So this one was direct to vendor, and when you're doing a deal direct to vendor, you got to build relationship. So it's a long term. I got to know his wife. I got to know himself, about his family, about his grandchildren, his daughter, everything. I got to know a lot about them personally and a lot about them financially and what they were looking to achieve when they move on. So it's long term because you have numerous conversations. With a vendor if you're doing something direct to vendor, don't you?
Yeah, and considering that timeline-wise, this was maybe 6 months after the previous learning that we were talking about, you can see that we've actually taken all that stuff on board and we'd actually started implementing it, and I think there were probably, you must have had 5 or 6 meetings,
more than
relationship building before you even talked about money.
100%,
right?
100%.
You just that never came onto the table until you built up a real close relationship with this person.
Yeah. even though they pushed to try and talk about money, I would just kind of sidestep and explain why I'm not talking about money. Not to say straight away like, yeah, up front, I'm not talking about money, but no, you just sidestep and then we'll talk about other things and they'll understand that, hold on a sec, there's a lot more to this than just the finances. And I know that, yeah, it was a long time building this relationship and numerous conversations, but then that got extended as well further because the deal dragged on. It took longer than expected because of solicitors. They were due diligence and they went over the top.
Yeah.
But they are solicitors, aren't they?
And again, a common theme occurring, isn't it? You know, last one, deal dragged out. This one, deal dragged out. I think most people find that you look at the time you think a deal's going to take to complete, it always takes longer, doesn't it?
It does, yes, yeah. Vendor got a bit frustrated, even though we had a relationship and he knew that it was out of our control. He got a bit frustrated and he just popped the deadline, like, right guys, this needs to be done by here, otherwise I'm not doing anything. But in that, yeah, if you recall that, but in that time we also then had the surveys taking place, so prior to taking over the property.
Yeah, that's right, because I mean we were taking on the property on an FRI lease, as well as a purchase option, which is a full repair and insure lease, meaning that if anything had happened to the property, you know, if the roof had fallen off, if one of the major boilers went, we would be responsible for the costs.
Yes, we would, yeah.
So, you know, as a protection measure, we always do surveys in that situation. So the key ones are the electrics, the plumbing, and a kind of structural, including the roof, because those are the big areas where potentially there could be issues and big costs involved if we don't identify them beforehand.
Yes, yeah. We even had our QS on site for that, and then those surveys came out, we were fine. We then carried out another very, very important one, which was a fire risk assessment, an FRA, and it was really good that we carried out that extensive fire risk assessment because we had, prior to taking on this property and agreeing everything, we had already arranged or agreed a long-term booking with some international students in this hotel, so we were going to be booked out for the first 2 months. And these were students, young children or young teenagers, and we carried out the FRA, and the report came back to say that the system that was in the fire system that was in the building was obsolete. It was ancient and it didn't comply to the standards. And the officer who went over there was really alarmed that they were still using that system. The thing is, they were using that system because they stayed on site. The landlord, the owner of the hotel, stayed on site, whereas we were not going to have anyone staying on site. We were just going to have, it was just going to be controlled from the office. So that was very, very, it changed our minds. It had a massive impact on our decision moving forward.
It did, didn't it? Because basically the vendor was really pushing us, and as he said, he gave us this deadline. Yeah. And ultimately what happened is we looked at it and we said, look, we can't have the property safe by that deadline. You know, regardless of who pays for it, who implements the system, it can't be done in time for this deadline.
Yes, yeah, it was to do with the deadline. And then I also approached him about paying for that system, and it was not cheap. And he wasn't happy with that. And I said, okay, even if we were to pay for it, we wouldn't meet the deadline. So timeline was very,
It was, and so what was the outcome of that in the end then?
The outcome of that, even though it built a long-term relationship with the couple, and learnt a lot about them and everything else, the most difficult thing for me was to say no, because it was not just us. It was our business at risk. It was the students who were going in who were going to be at risk if there was a fire. You don't want to think of the worst, but you have to in these situations, in these circumstances. It's not just protecting our asset and ourselves, but then protecting people's lives. So having the power to say no was something I learned was not that easy, because there's a lot at stake, there's a lot that's been invested, and you know what these people are looking to achieve, you know how they're not going to be able to achieve this if we say no, and we have to say no. And the power of saying no was so impactful, isn't it? Empowered us more just by saying no, and we've taken this on moving forward with other people, where I've had feedback from people that I want to work with you, Ritchie, or I want to work with your company. Yeah, you and Chris have said no more times than you said yes. So other people will just straight away jump on this, but then you've said no more times than you said yes. So the power of saying no and just having the strength to, even though you've invested time, effort, money, you've sacrificed a lot of that, but then those are expenses to the lessons. They're just investments to your lessons. You don't just get lessons for free. You've got to invest in your lessons, so to speak.
Yeah, and it was a very painful one to say no to as well, wasn't it? Because we already had like a £5,000-6,000 solicitor bill for all the due diligence that they were doing, etc., because it was pretty much ready to complete.
Yes,
There's this one thing holding it up. So we knew that walking away from this deal was going to cost us a lot of money as well. But fundamentally, morally, as you mentioned before, of all your responsibilities as a serviced accommodation operator, by far the biggest one is that when guests come in and stay in your properties, they're putting their lives in your hands every night when they go to sleep, and you have to make sure that you've done absolutely everything you can to make sure that they're safe. And we fundamentally would not be in a situation where we would put guests in a property where we weren't comfortable with that.
That's it.
Where we didn't feel that we'd done everything we could to make it safe, and however much money that cost us, or credibility with the agents or other parties involved, it was very important that however painful it was, we said no.
Yeah, you can't put a price on a life. So however much money it costs us, small investment.
So our next learning takes us back to just after we've started the management company that we had down in Southampton. And we just started that business. We had a few clients on board, and we'd had someone approach us to manage one of their properties. And we didn't know them particularly well, but we kind of met up with them, saw their property, and said, no problems.
It was a good property. It was a good property.
It'd been recently refurbished, nice high standard, good design, looked nice, etc., And we said, this will work really well for SA. We'll manage it for you. But I think we both found that from the start the relationship was quite strained. We just didn't quite see eye to eye on a number of different things,
but we overlooked that, and and it was just relationships are a bit strange. They're kind of more got the upper hand of the relationship, but we kind of overlooked that because that was our first management client, and we wanted to get the business up and running.
So I think we both agree that from the start it was a bit of a strained relationship. There was no one was doing anything wrong. It was just it simply wasn't the right fit, for the two different parties. And then I think, like a lot of things in life, it takes very little time to get into it. A relationship like that, where we're managing a property for them, but actually it took an awful lot of time and effort to exit that relationship in a way where neither party were negatively affected, right?
100%, yes, that took a lot of work because we got support from friends and business colleagues and our mentor as well at that time. So yes, it took a lot of energy and effort to make sure that we exited it the right way without with either party not being hurt or negatively impacted.
Particularly compared to the split second it says to say yes to a deal.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
And that's kind of very much enforcing our last learning as well, isn't it? Around the power of saying no and knowing when to say no. But I think the key lesson around this is we'd only just started our management company, and so we kind of thought, well, actually we're just managing properties on behalf of clients, so it doesn't really matter who the client is.
That's it. It's not like we're going into an equity relationship, but they're more business venture with them.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's about the properties, and we very quickly learned from this that actually no, it's not about the properties at all. It's even more so about who the clients are, and actually you need to treat management like it's a joint venture, because essentially it is.
It is, yes, different form of joint venture, but
it's a different form of joint venture, but it's very much a joint venture. So you need to do all the things we've talked about before, about building a relationship with someone, getting to know them and understand them from both a personal and a business level, to know whether it's actually the right fit for both parties or not. And so now what we've done off the back of those learnings is that we have a process in place for onboarding new clients where, again, a bit like the hotel that we were talking about before, it's only really until the third or fourth meeting that we'll talk about any details around it, around the properties or how we work or anything like that, because it's relationship building.
It is relationship building. Sorry to butt in, but yes, people find that very strange, our way of doing meetings, where we don't go down to the fact of figures the figures and that straight away, because that's all they know. They tend to know that we're going to a meeting, all we're talking about is figures, like how much money we're going to make, what's the occupancy going to be like, what you're going to be delivering. But it's more, for us, we've learnt, and it's more about the relationship, because we're not just a quick fix, it's about long-term relationship. And like you say, it is a joint venture. So you've got to value who you're going to joint venture partnership with.
Definitely, and there's two basic philosophies around business, isn't there? One is transactional and one is relationship based, and we're very much relationship based. I think most people are used to transactional business, where, you know, I buy something off you, and that's the way it works. But, you know, it's very important to us, and it's very much tied in with our core values, is that actually our business is relationship focused. And so if you can't cope with 3 meetings where we're building up a relationship with you to try and know and understand you and see whether we can genuinely offer you value or not, then you're probably not the right fit for working with us. You know, so actually that works really, really well, doesn't it? In terms of making sure that it's the right fit for both parties and that we have a good working relationship going into taking on a new client.
Another lesson we learned was when we took on a property which was packaged with another property. So the other property was packaged with, was beautiful, great property, but this one was not the best. But looking at it at first glance, you're like, you know, a lot can be done with this, and it wasn't as risky because that one was on a short lease, only a year. So I looked at it and I thought, you know what, we might be able to do this, you know, even though it doesn't 100% fit our strategy and what we're looking trying to achieve, because it's packaged with this one, which is going to work, we'll get this one to work. And there was a bit of work which is required, but yeah, kind of bit off more than we could chew because it was a lot more work than we expected. Yeah, turned out to be quite an amount of work on there, which was time, effort, invested money. And because if you take a look at first glance, it wasn't the most attractive of properties. And our staff who were setting up and doing the work around it did not prioritize it. And I'm not surprised. They didn't prioritize it because they didn't like it. So a lot of work, we're doing work with other properties. I think we're taking on about 8 units around that time. And this one kind of went down the pecking order because everything else was done properly, set up on all the others and everything. And this one just took forever to set up. It took about, was it 5 months in the end? That's painful.
Yeah. And that a lot of that was because you said there were a lot of other properties we were setting up, and not necessarily at the same time, but back to back.
Yes,
so
back to
this
back.
was always dropped down a priority.
Yes,
order. You know, it's one of those fundamentals of people. If you don't like something, you're not going to prioritise it. And I think all the people associated with that property, from the property manager to the maintenance guys, are just like,
I don't want. Yes. But for maintenance guys, you think, guys, you got to get a lot of work on this. Why not just prioritize, put it number 1? Not the bottom of the picking list, but yeah.
Yeah, so it got there in the end, but I think we both agreed that actually, in hindsight, it was a bit of a mistake.
It was, yes, yeah.
So in a way, it's actually very similar to a situation I found out a few months ago when I was chatting with a developer, and found out that they'd been in a situation where they have a full-time development team and they had a bit of a lull in their schedule and they were going to be sat empty for 6 months or so. So they actually ended up taking on a deal which otherwise they probably wouldn't have done, but they thought actually there's a benefit here outside of the deal, and the benefit is we can keep our team busy so that when the next project comes up they're all ready to go and they don't end up disbanding, working on other stuff, and we lose that amazing team that we've actually put together on this. So in a way it's very similar, isn't it? We kind of did the deal for another reason other than just doing the deal.
That's it, isn't we did not stick to our strategy. We knew it was not part of our strategy, but then just because it was packaged with another property which fits our strategy, we're like, yes, we'll do this, we'll do this straight away. But yes, just don't just do deals just for the sake of doing deals. You know, the reason we do deals is to make money. So yes, let's do deals to make money and stick to your strategy.
That's it. I think, you know, there was an argument which we followed at the time, which was that actually the deal might not be amazing, but actually the relationships it would build, etc., would be worth it. But fundamentally, the financial cost of doing that deal has been quite significant. And
yes, it
in
has.
retrospect, it just, we teach people about strategy and how important it is to stick to our models. I think in that particular case, we were guilty of not following our own advice.
Exactly, especially you, Mr. Strategy.
Well, yes, absolutely. Thankfully, it was a one-off, and again, the learnings from there are that if we've got a strategy in place, stick to it, even if you've got other ways of justifying it. I think it's very important.
That's it. And when we speak strategy or talk strategy with clients, we highlight this deal and explain, like, look at how this worked, look at how that worked. If you go for this, you might end up in this situation. So yet again, it's a lesson and an invaluable lesson.
Yeah, if you've got a strategy in place,
stick to it. Yeah, don't deviate. So the truth of the matter is that we see them as mistakes. Other people see them as mistakes. We used to see them as mistakes, but then they are learnings, because you're not going to improve your business. You're not going to grow as a business. You're not going to grow as a person if you don't go through these lessons and these learnings. So no, mistakes don't exist anymore. It's just learnings.
Thanks for catching up with this episode of the Serviced Accommodation Podcast. Keep an eye out for our next episode. We're going to be continuing our biggest learnings.
For more information, visit the sapodcast.com.